let's just admit, love it or hate it, this show would not know consistency if it lived in its cupboard as a talking paving slab and the two shared some kind of a love life. I mean, I guess that's to be expected from a show about literally anything, which is why it is honestly surprising for me that the episode I'm going to talk about today is treated as such an exception among fans. Why this episode garnered such bile and negativity. So, here we go. Hellbent is written by Stephen Moffat and it is terrible. There is little more to say about it. That's why I'm going to talk about Love and Monsters. Did you like that? Did that subvert your expectations? Ha 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 ha! Now, I will admit, as I speak of the unspeakable, I will admit that I come from a place of obvious bias. My name is Will Grantham. In 2006, I won the Doctor Who Designer Monster competition. My villain design was the Abzorbaloff, who went on to be the main villain of this very episode. So of course I will never be able to dislike this episode. I am biased, but I will do my best to present this from the perspective of someone who wasn't involved in this episode's fruition. But Love and Monsters is frickin' awesome. As far as post-reboot Doctor Who episodes go, Love and Monsters has garnered by far the most infamy of any episode. The storyline, on paper, is actually very clever. It's told from the perspective of a mid-2000s Earth bystander, Elton Pope, who has spent his entire life in search of the Doctor after a mysterious visit the day his mother died. He notices him popping up all over the news and such, and he notices that he hasn't aged a day, even though he was a child when he first saw him. Which brings about a group of socially average conspiracy theorists that are all getting to know each other over their interest of the Doctor. A little tidbit, I thought of a better title than Love and Monsters for this story. The Forever Man. The Doctor not aging since his encounter with the young Elton plays a bit of a role in this story, and the title, The Forever Man, just has a far darker hum to it. But I digress. The group give themselves a little name, Linda, chase their own individual dreams together, including starting an ELO tribute band and a buffet, but this all gets ruined by a bloated, business-minded mogul called Victor Kennedy, who takes the search for the Doctor far more seriously than any normal person would. And that's where the fun ends. He bullies his way to the top of the team's food chain and builds a hierarchical structure. You might say his attitude towards the Doctor consumes the lives of his friends. One could say they get a bit absorbed in it. It all becomes a bit metaphorical when Victor is revealed to be a green gelatinous lizard who willfully refers to himself as the Abzorbaloff. That literally absorbs his prey. So what would this alien's motivation be to find the Doctor? Well, for each time the Abzorbaloff absorbs a victim, the mind of the victim and the Abzorbaloff becomes shared, so obviously he's hungry for knowledge that the Doctor has, and he's prepared to hurt people and destroy lives in the process. As a matter of fact, for such a universally poorly received villain, the Abzorbaloff has a pretty high victim count, even if we're just talking about people he's hurt. Take that, Moffat-era Daleks! What's pretty clever about this, though, is how metaphorical this story is. The group of friends that form because of their interest in the Doctor reflects Doctor Who fans who became friends because of their interest in the show. Victor Kennedy, aka Abzorbaloff, represents Ian Levine, that typical Doctor Who fan that takes everything far too seriously and simply cannot get away from the subject, even where it's totally inappropriate. It is after companion Rose Tyler's mother, Jackie Tyler, is hurt by the Abzorbaloff's plans, indirectly through Elton Pope, that the Doctor and Rose give chase and confront the Abzorbaloff, leading to his defeat at the hands of his victims tearing him apart and disposing of his cane which keeps him all in one piece, basically. The episode is ended with a narrative on how life can be more interesting than meets the eye when in the shadow of a tragedy from Elton Pope, and in typical Doctor Who fashion, his best friend is now a paving slab, though some would debate that they may have taken this joke a bit too far with one particular line. On paper though, this all sounds great. Good old Russell the Davis with his ambitious and clever ideas. So what went wrong? One school of thought could certainly dictate that fans may have been offended by the metaphor for Doctor Who fans. However, if Doctor Who fan Facebook groups have taught me anything, it's that Doctor Who fans and satire don't really go together. So I'd say more than likely that the satirical elements flew over their heads. I'm an absolute sucker for satire, but then again, I don't preach that Doctor Who is supreme. Oh my god, a Slitheen. God, you can tell that my opinion of Doctor Who fans is not very high, and can you really blame me? God, these people all ganged up on a 9-year-old kid about his monster design, which happened to be me. That was quite a bit to learn, but ultimately I'm grateful for the lesson learned, and frankly, I've made a lot of friends in this community, so why diss them too much? Besides, I like to think I'm a good sport. I love all the jokes that go along with it. As well as this, Love and Monsters is a pretty star-studded affair. As far as British TV casts go, it's got the guy from Hustle, Moaning Myrtle, a beloved Bolton comedian, and a load of others. This episode was clearly set up as a little bit of an event status TV. Upon rewatch though, I noticed that this episode generally isn't played straight. Elton Pope, Ursula, Abzorbaloff, and a number of others are all portrayed like cartoon characters, and generally the direction kinda pivots between pantomime and soap, which would probably be a bit less jarring if all of the characters were more cartoony. Some play it straight, some don't. And the episode's juxtaposition with the previous two stories being as dark as they are does not help this, and the follow-up being pretty universally poorly received does not put Love and Monsters in a great place. The Abzorbaloff himself was highly criticised as being an embarrassing cliché comedy character in a latex suit, but as far as latex-clad Doctor Who enemies go, of which there are many, I don't see the Abzorbaloff as any kind of negative exception. But then again, of course I love him. I could never speak ill of the hard work those talented folks at Millennia FX did. They're wonderful. As well as that, Peter Kay is an absolute gem. I feel like this was all very experimental. As far as Doctor Who is concerned, this story about humans in an at that time present day London ends up being one of the more abstract Doctor Who stories in recent memory, which is a bit of an achievement if you think about it. But generally I think the pantomime and soap style as well as the cartoony performances of the stars involved probably perhaps a bit too much for the audience to stomach. At the same time though, I'd say Love and Monsters is no less palatable for general audience members than, say, a post-50th anniversary Moffat nostalgia puff piece, Love Them or Hate Them. Disclaimer, Moffat is very talented and an ambitious writer. His ambition is both his key quality and his weakness. With time and guidance, he can weave miracles. And comes across as a great guy, even if I don't rate his run on Doctor Who too highly. At its absolute worst, I'd say Love and Monsters is pretty harmless. In no way does it hurt the show's continuity like other stories. It has a tighter script than some other stories too. It's not the worst written, not the least interesting, and doesn't mess with any predetermined ideas of the show, so really, why all the fuss? At the same time though, keep up the fuss. This infamy is keeping my monster design remembered, unlike, say, the far worse Max Capricorn. So keep at it. I feed off of your hate. And now to clear up a few things about the Abzorbaloff. I designed this when I was 9 years old and was pretty proud of the design at the time. He originally came from planet Zom and not Clom, but then in the magazine it changed to Som, and then it was Clom in the final episode, so it's a pretty interesting little progression there. But I do like the whole juxtaposition between the twin planet Raxacorica Phalopatorius and then there's Clom. I can appreciate the cleverness in that. Now, as for how I originally imagined the Abzorbaloff as a kid, to be honest, I can't necessarily remember what exactly my 9-year-old self had in mind, other than a giant fat Squidward that was absorbing people into his body. There's even a surfer dude, if you've ever looked at the picture up close, so he was clearly more of a Californian-based enemy than a London/Cardiff-based enemy, but anyway, I kind of more imagined him being sort of like 20 foot tall, shall we say, like King Kong-sized approximately, and he would have been like a non-verbal, non-talking, rage-induced monster that's sort of like just a liquid, just this flowing liquid that could sort of shape-shift and do all sorts and everything. So sort of a cane-wielding business mogul is not my initial impression, but by no means was I at all disappointed by what I got. I mean, for Pete's sake, I was a kid. Like, getting your enemy design done on the show, I mean, like, that's got to be enough to blow any 9-year-old's mind, and let's face it, they're not going to care about the episode's overall quality. It's just lucky that I do happen to be able to see the positives in it, and I've noticed that the show's definitely getting a bit of a cult status over the years for this episode, which is really nice to see. I think we have in part to thank 5 Who fans for that, because they gave a really positive review of this episode. And yeah, like, I fully agreed with it. Hell, it helped me see some positives in it that I didn't even see before seeing that review. And really, like, I've shown this episode to my girlfriend, who's not a Doctor Who fan. She's only seen a handful of episodes, and she said it's far from the worst she's seen. She enjoyed it and everything. So, honestly, I think people could afford a rewatch or perhaps a rethink of Love and Monsters, and I won't lie, its negative reception did affect me as a kid, like growing up a little bit. Like, I did get bullied at school a little bit for it and everything, but I'm so far past that now, because honestly, it's actually nice to see some of the vocalness that comes with it. I have no problem with people criticizing Abzorbaloff or the episode or anything like that, because naturally that's going to come with anything these days, like with anything as watched as the Abzorbaloff, and it just shows that a lot of people got the chance to see it, and that a lot of people do feel quite passionately about this. And I know that there's a YouTuber who at the time was called Vote Saxon, quite a big deal, and I once made a total fool of myself when I was younger. When he was doing like a little look back on like episodes, he did one on Love and Monsters. I was like, oh, for Pete's sake, has this episode not received enough negativity now? Can people not let go of this at this point? Not realizing that this was part of an ongoing thing. And there was a bit of a heated rhetoric initially, but after that, the two of us became friends. He's been very helpful with all sorts of life stuff that's come with it. He is an absolutely lovely guy. So, yeah, so subscribe to him. And yeah, no, so honestly, it's been a journey doing this, and as well as that, when I went to the set of Doctor Who to meet Abzorbaloff and David Tennant and everyone, I was introduced to the world of filmmaking, which is what spawned my desire to be a director. So, really, I cannot thank the BBC, Russell T Davies, David Tennant, Peter Kay, Millennium FX Studios, everyone that made that experience whole. I can't thank them enough for this whole experience, really. It's been wonderful, and I've made so many friends out of it, and so many dreams. So, yeah. Also, for the record, I would not call the monster Abzorbaloff at this stage. I would call him Zorby. I just feel like there's a more honest name. Zorby. Did you enjoy this video? If you did, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, and why not leave a comment? You know I'd be very grateful. Thanks for watching.